Hi, I'm Brittany Pacheco.
And I'm Franklin Cooper.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome back to our channel. We appreciate everyone who has joined us for the live chats, as well as those who watch our replays and tune into our audio podcast. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're almost to 200 subscribers, Frank. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, man. I think, what's been crazy, I think with the high production that we've done with podcasts for the last month or so, like we're putting out like 3 a week, almost 3 or 4 a week.
Almost. Yeah.
So like, I think the level of content we're putting out is like getting out there and people are seeing it more, which is a great thing. So I love it. Let's get it.
Yep. I'm here for it. Thank y'all to everyone once again. Help us get to 200. I can't even talk today. 200 subscribers, hopefully before the end of the year. I mean, we're just a couple weeks away from concluding 2022. And speaking of which, tune in to Monday's pod where we will be talking about the best and worst of 2022. That's going to be interesting because I'm sure everyone has different opinions about, the best things they've watched, movies, TV shows, and the worst. So I'm ready for that, Frank. Are you ready for that?
I am. I'm big time. Let's get it.
All right. Well, we're here today to talk about the 5th episode of season 2 of Gangs of London. Frank, these episodes are just there are no words. Like, there simply are no words, just because you kind of maybe think the direction that it's going, and then bam, there's like plot twist.
Yeah, it's like a gangster ass soap opera. It's like Young and the Restless, but with a lot of blood and violence. People come back from the dead. People are like popping up out of nowhere. Betrayals are happening like you didn't think it was going to happen. Like it's the Highway 59 288 of like of like you don't know what's going to happen until it happens.
Oh, that 59 and 288. That's a great analogy. Jeez, that's like a terrible, terrible area of Houston. Yeah, no, that's seriously. I mean, when we left off with Gangs of London, Sean revealed himself and basically sent a message to Koba through Saba, a young girl involved in the crossfire of things, and basically said, let Koba know that Sean Wallace is here and is taking everything back. And it's like, we had some discussion about this, right? About whether or not that was a smart decision on Sean's part, because if you can be a ghost and do things behind the scenes like that, you would think would work in one's favor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with being a ghost because you can do so much more and you can implode the empire from within your opposition because they don't know who's betraying them. They don't know what's coming at them. They don't know. For those who watch Power season 1, that's 50 Cent show, Ghost and Tommy are trying to realize what's going on with the infrastructure. Why are there people are getting killed, guys who are moving the drugs. And in the season you find out that Ghost's mentor in 50 Cent, who's in prison, is calling all the shots and buying off people to like destroy the castle from within. So you would think that Sean would operate like that, be a little bit more covert in his mission of like taking down Koba, Asif, and whoever's in his way. But I can only attribute it to that being ego of like Sean saying, I want my name out there. I want Cass to fear me. I want Cass to realize that, Finn Wallace might be gone, but his heir is still here in the wings, waiting to take over and run these streets again.
Listen, I'll say too, first of all, I agree with everything you just said. However, Sean being out in the open has not stopped him from operating silently, because the ending of this episode, I did not foresee. I don't think the character that everything bad happened to would foresee that this is, Sean Wallace is doing. So it's kind of like, even though he's out in the open, he's still, operating silently. And I think it's a great like shift in things. But let's just go ahead and get right into it, Frank. We start off with the episode of 6 years ago when Elliot and his dad, Charlie, are at the wake for Elliot's wife and son's funeral. Like, this is sad. And remind me, do we actually know what happened to Elliot's family?
He tells Shannon, I believe in episode 3 or 4, of why he stopped fucking with them. No, I'm sorry. Season 1, he tells them that it was an accident. He doesn't clarify what the accident was, but that took his wife and son. Because I think Shannon made a move on him in the skyrise, and he took her home, and he realized and he said he was married because he was still wearing his ring, but he realized she thought that just another married dude. Then he mentioned that he still wears his ring because of the loss of his wife and son, but he doesn't say why.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
happened.
I couldn't remember at all if we did get an explanation as to what happened with the loss of his family, but we hear Charlie, his father, basically saying to him, like, if you ever feel that you're slipping, reach out to me, talk to me, like, you don't let this destroy you. But clearly 6 years later, Elliot is in some shit. Obviously, he's working for multiple people. He's killing people, but he's also trying to get his dad out, trying to keep his dad safe from the investors and anyone and everyone else who could threaten them. And again, we talked about the end of the previous episode with Sean and company open fire on Koba and that big boss meeting. And now Koba is meeting with Asif about, what was lost and things like that. And Asif pretty much blames Koba, right? Says he's distracted. What were your thoughts on this scene between Koba and Asif? Because I thought it was an incredibly well worded conversation.
I love that scene for Koba because holistically, naturally, in shows like this, when there's a boss and there's a subordinate, you see the chain of power. When the boss is upset, the subordinate takes on the chin. He fesses up. He says, "I'm sorry. I'm going to move on. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make up for this loss." When you watch that scene, Brittany, you can't realize, you don't know who's the subordinate and who's there, because Koba is such an explosive character that, yes, even though Asif and the investors hired him, he still operates as a lone wolf, and he still operates as the island of Koba. Like he's not gonna take disrespect from anybody, especially when he feels like what transpired is not his fault. And technically it wasn't. Like it was out of his control. Nobody knew that Sean was alive. How could he have known? And the way Koba bucks at Asif, you would have thought that he was gonna get up and slice Asif's throat. He was like, the line that he said was, direct your anger away from me. That's what he says to the guy who's paying him, and to the investors. And Koba, I think a lot of it's arrogance too. But again, it really explains the character of Koba, of how just because you're over him, he's not gonna concede and take take embarrassment and somebody pulling his card. The investors pay his payroll. Asif is the liaison between investors and Koba, and like, it was just so gangster that Koba's like, man, look, you might be my boss, but fuck you. You're not gonna tell me what to do. You're not gonna make me feel bad about this shit. So I loved it. It was such an explosive scene.
The other part to that conversation was Koba telling Asif, "You forget who you're talking to," and Asif replies, eloquently, might I add, "You forget who you're working for." And I'm like, oh my God, if there was ever a moment to like bitch slap someone in the face,
Yeah.
that was it. That was it.
I think too, Brittany, if it's not public knowledge amongst the crews that the investors are supplying Koba or supplying Koba through Asif, he would have killed Asif in that scene. I think the only reason why he didn't do it, because the investors are so powerful. He doesn't know who the investors are. They could be anywhere. They could be anybody, anywhere, anytime. And I think that's the only thing that held him back from like rising up on Asif.
100% agree with that, because we're leaving this scene, going to the next. Basically, Asif says to Koba that the investors say to Koba, "Kill Sean Wallace or we'll come and kill you." And this is like a really important theme throughout the episode, because there's a constant kind of reminder, both verbally and nonverbal, about there's middle management, right? You're just a pawn, and these higher ups call the shots, and you think you're in power, you think you're in control, but you really are not whatsoever. So I love that this theme is really kicked off early on in this episode, because we'll come back and revisit it later with Sean. So when we do see that Singer has come through, right? There was a promise to be made of getting Elliot and Charlie out, but then Singer meets with Sean privately to say, "Hey, Elliot's getting out, but we want the Wallaces back on top." And then Sean's like, "Okay, but like what? So I work for you?" And Singer says, "We all answer to someone." It's like, "Oh my god, like how can you say that to a crime mob's boss's son?" Like,
I solely believe when Singer said that to Sean, Singer had just signed his death warrant.
oh god, 100%.
Because again, his father's Finn Wallace, and Finn from the flashbacks we saw, he always says, "You are Wallace. Do what Wallaces do. You answer to nobody." There was a scene where, like, I think it might have been season 1 where they captured this guy and they bury him in the ground. His head is showing, and like the sons are like they have the rifle in their hands, and he literally says, "You're a fucking Wallace. You answer to nobody." So it was kind of like symbolism of like counteracting sayings between what his father said and what Singer's saying to him. It was an automatic trigger, like, motherfucker, who are you talking to? Like, my pappy ain't teaching me that. Like, you're fucked. Like, and I think if Singer doesn't say that, he's not in Sean's killing zone at this point. So that was a very, I think, and even in real life, I think law enforcement and authorities really forget that sometimes just because you're law enforcement and just because you have government behind your back does not mean you're untouchable. I mean, I've studied crime bosses. I've studied the cartel. They have murdered plenty of government officials in real life. Pablo Escobar murdered a lot of politicians in Colombia during his time as a guy. So a gangster ass crime boss is not going to let a shield or internal protection stop them from getting to the goal of killing people who are in the way.
Yeah, and I mean, at the moment, Sean is kind of at the mercy of Singer, or so we're led to believe in a way, because he was locked up for 9 months, tortured, beaten, whatever, and made a bargain, right? Okay, I'll work for you.
Not just forget all that getting beat up and he didn't forget that shit. He remembered all of that. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. So like you internalize it and you're like, I'm gonna bide my time until I have the opportune moment. And this episode is the opportune moment for Sean to act, because damn. And in order for Sean to act, he needs to grow his alliances, right? We know that Lale and her people are in his corner. He came through with supplying them with arms to take down like the big boss meeting and to potentially not work for Koba anymore, right? But like he still needs to continue growing his alliance, right? And so Sean goes to Luan's like front furniture store, I don't know what it is, and there's exchange of guns pointing at one another. Even Luan's wife, who had been buried alive and she's not doing well, I was like, oh, okay, bad bitch status right here. Like,
can you blame her? She would just say from the grave, literally. So she's probably like PTSD on 10 right now of like anything as a threat. She's pulling out guns and waving them motherfuckers without cause. So no.
Listen, I got to give it to Luan and his family and his wife. Like, they are there to support one another in all of their toxic ways and whatnot. Like, you have to give it to that family and sticking together.
But you know what, too, Brittany? I think the women are so unheralded in this show, because all the women that are involved in this life, whether it's Marion Wallace, whether it's Shannon, whether it's Luan's wife, all of them are entrenched in this life, and they have no problem protecting their own and protecting the men in their life that are in this life. And we've seen plenty of examples of it. We saw Miriam pretty much hold this hostage in her basement and try to kill Sean in episode in season 1, and she's torturing him. You see Shannon, what I'm saying, like take out FDA a fucking agent, what I'm saying, and take out a fucking banker, what I'm saying, like. And you see Luan's wife pulling out guns, like, hey, I'm not gonna be a victim again. Like, this is my husband. I agree with what my husband does. And even though they want to get out eventually, she has no problem protecting hers her daughter and her husband. So the women in this show, they're as much a part of this life as the men are.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I appreciate that. It's kind of like, the what do you call it? The lioness with her cubs, like come fuck with me and find out sort of situation, right? It was very cool to see, but it's like, man, like you have gone through so much. Like I need you to take a breather and sit down. But this conversation between Luan and Sean is basically about Koba, of course. We know that Luan feels some type of way towards Koba. Like everyone feels some type of way towards Koba. And Sean basically says to Luan, together we'll finish Koba. And Luan gets like real with Sean fast and says, you have no chance. You have no chance taking down Koba. And so, the question I wrote in my notes was like, will we ever see an alliance between Sean and Luan? And I know you've watched the rest of the season because this aired in the UK earlier this year. I have not watched the rest of the season because I just haven't. So without telling us too much, Frank, is this something that we could maybe anticipate, or do you think there could be reasons for Luan and Sean to form an alliance against Koba, despite the ending of this episode, which we'll get to?
I think initially I want to answer that question by setting up what Luan just went through. So if you watch this season, Luan's house gets raided by Koba's people. His wife gets kidnapped. His daughters are a threat of getting killed or kidnapped. He finds his wife. He finds out where his wife is at. He's trying to get to his wife. Koba's men are there again. He's trying to literally dig up his wife while he's fighting off Koba's men. He fails that mission. He's held hostage with Ed in a boxing ring, about to get killed by Koba. So I say all to say this: he's went through so much just against Koba and survival mode and protecting his family. So at this point, he's kind of like, I won from the standpoint of I got my wife out alive. I realized I can't beat this dude. This dude made me betray Miriam by giving up Miriam's location. This dude came at my wife and kids, and he came at me. At this point, I'm defeated. I have no other routes to take to get back at this dude. He's bought out all the gangs in London. I have no allies because now I can't trust them because Koba has them on payroll. What do I have left? And he's pretty much telling Sean that you can go at him if you want, but I just put my family through hell just trying to get my family back together. And I'm not going to put my family at risk again by going at this dude. I don't care what lines you have. I don't care who you got on payroll. I'm not putting my family through that again. So I say all that to say this. I don't think so, only because Luan, and what we see, Luan's a family man. Yes, he's a businessman, but throughout the last few episodes, going back to the middle of last season, he's trying to create an out to get out of this game, go to an island, live out his life as a retired gangster with his family, his wife and kids. So I think Luan's motivation is more so of just trying to get out more than trying to stay in this game and create alliances. So I don't think he's going to create, because I've watched a couple episodes ahead too, but I don't think he's going to be an alliance with Sean, only because he loves his family more and he wants to get out of this life.
That's a fair assessment. We definitely have seen that side of Luan and the lengths he'll go to in order to protect his family. And initially, because I thought, okay, there was Miriam who was obviously supplying Luan and his men with arms, right? So you kind of think, okay, well, they already had a friendship or an alliance in a way, and now that Sean's back, it's like, okay, let's just naturally kind of join forces and take out the bad guy. But then at the same time, this is Sean Wallace, loose cannon. Kind of, you just don't know what will come from him at all, right? So I think what you said and the reasons behind it for Luan to not engage and get involved with any of this is completely solid, because he has gone through so much, and I'm pretty sure the PTSD is at level 10 for him as well. So yeah, no, I completely understand that. But because in the conversation, Luan makes a comment about Ed Dumani and not knowing if he was alive or not, Marion then goes and calls Shannon to basically say, hey, something's happened with your dad. You need to get out. And when we see Ed in that chair, Frank, like, what were your feelings and thoughts as we see his whole demeanor and what's happening to him?
I was surprised that he was still alive, to be honest, because Koba Koba does not take betrayal well, and Koba had these grandiose plans to like really make Luan suffer, and to have Ed pretty much cut that short and give Luan the location of his wife. That was the ultimate betrayal in Koba's eyes. So the fact that he's still alive, I mean, I thought by this point of the show that Ed would have been 85 pieces
Mm.
in a body bag. So I don't
I mean,
know.
we saw a handful of pulled teeth.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So I don't know I don't know why he was keeping him alive for as long as he was, because I mean he got everything he needed. Like I don't know what else he needed to keep him alive for, unless just to have the enjoyment of making him suffer even more. But that was also, and we didn't talk about that much in the last episode. That was a character turn
Mhm.
for Ed, because Ed just lost his son. So I think with that too, that humanized Ed a lot more, because Ed been in this game for what, 40 years with Finn. If he going back to last season, recounting the years he's been in the game.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think that was the first time in Ed's life that he realized that this may not be for me. I lost my son in the very game that I made a lot of money in.
Yep.
And if I don't have, and at this point, Shannon stopped fucking with him too, because Shannon was in prison and Ed didn't help her, and Shannon blaming Ed for Alex's death. So at this point, Ed has always preached family. And at this point, if your family is fractured or gone, what's the point of building this luxury of life and finances and resources if you have nobody else to give it to? And I think for Ed, when Luan's pleading to get his wife back, I think the death of Alex, the estrangement between him and Shannon, was the reason why he gave Luan his wife's location. So I like seeing that character turn. I want to see where else it goes with that now. But that was the first time I realized Ed was a human. Like he actually had emotion.
Yeah, he definitely questioned his loyalty in the previous episode, and seeing just how much Koba just didn't care, and what lengths he would go to in order to get what he wanted, right? And Koba, as a reminder to everyone, he's hired by Asif, who by extension is hired by the investors to retrieve the money that was taken thanks to Finn. And Koba will go to any means necessary in order to get the gangs to fall back in line and to get the money back, right? And sidebar, now that Alex is gone, what's happened to that whole financing company that he was a part of? I mean, not expecting any real answers or anything like that. It's like, did that just like kind of go away because like now Ed's being tortured and like is probably MIA from the company? You see what I'm saying? It's like, what happened to all that now? What happened to all that money?
That's a good question, because the only money they've talked about is the money that Finn stole. So we don't know about the rest of the money. I don't know who took over for Alex. They haven't really talked about that yet. So it's a good point. That's a good point, because it's still a lot of money that still needs to be managed. It needs to be moved around and laundered and cleaned up. So I
wonder if
that.
I wonder if Asif is behind that, somehow has acquired the means to get access to those funds. And I just don't know. It just made me think as you're talking about how Alex is gone and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, because that was like the front in order for Alex to get clean money and get himself out, right? So that was just a sidebar. But yeah, at this point with Ed, as I said, he's been tortured. We've seen pulled out teeth. He's all bloodied in the front. He's been beaten with a rod iron. His scalp is peeled. Like, my dude over here has suffered, right? And Koba is keeping him alive because he wants information. He wants information about Sean, and openly says to Ed, hey, if I don't find your information valuable anymore, not only will I kill you in this room, but I'm going to go after the rest of the Dumani family, meaning Shannon and Danny. And when I thought it was crazy and so well written, I really enjoy the writers, way of thinking and carrying these conversations between two people. When Koba is asking about Sean, you know, what is he like? Who does he like? Who does he love? Who does he hate? What, you know, what does he want to be? And Ed simply answers with his father. And Koba says, to what question? And he goes, all of them. And I'm like, oh, this is incredible. Like, I mean, it is the very epitome of Sean Wallace. He loves his father. He hates his father. He wants to be his father. And Koba has to figure out, you know, what the weaknesses are. What are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? And it all goes back to Finn Wallace. Like, what were your thoughts on that exchange?
I love that exchange because it showed me that Koba was really worried. And you never really see Koba sweat, right? But Koba, let's be frank here. Koba was embarrassed. Last episode where Sean and Lolly attacked them and I think Sean said that, no, Lolly said this to Sean in a conversation on the balcony. It's like she says the attack on them was to inspire fear.
Mm-hmm.
That was the main. It wasn't just an aggressive attack, and I think that kind of attack on Koba, because in Koba's mind, everybody is scared of him. Like there's no rock unturned. Like there's fear across all the gangs, and I think Koba's like, fuck. I did all this ruthlessness, all this killing, all of this aggression to inspire loyalty, only to get punched in the mouth and like
by a ghost.
Yeah, by a ghost, and like realize that, oh shit, not everybody's scared of me. So I think Koba, for the first time, at least with this job as an assassin / handler, how do I strategically approach this by getting that fear back? Because he lost it. Like Sean don't give a fuck. Like, and Sean's showing the rest of the. And I think what's more important, Sean is showing the rest of the gangs in London that you shouldn't be afraid either. Because I'm the guy that should be at the helm. I'm the guy that rocks with Iron Fist. My daddy rocked this gangs with the Iron Fist for 40 years. Let's get back to tradition and let Wallace be at the helm. Because at least with a Wallace at the helm, I would hear the rest of the families out. I would take heed to your opinions, to your advice, and nobody will be afraid of their life every time they ask a question towards me, as people are with Koba.
I love how you put everything in perspective like that. It's so well said and it's so well done, because again, we've already heard it from the beginning of this episode where Singer says, hey, Elliot's getting out, but we want a Wallace, or we want the Wallaces back on top, you know, in a fashion. And Sean just kind of like heard what he heard, and he's like, listen, I'm gonna get back on top. Like I want everything, you know. I think it's great. But shifting slightly to talking about Elliot, as I said before, Singer came through to get Elliot and his dad out of the country, start new lives, you know, leave everything behind, right? And Elliot also has to deliver on his promise to Singer of providing the USB information of the investors, right? So as Elliot and his dad are on the way to the airport, he is getting a phone call from Shannon, who's just in a panic, right? She's got Danny in the car. They're trying to get out, but she's asking Elliot, where would Koba hold my dad? And he starts kind of telling her, like, you know, if he's got your dad, in other words, he's not alive. Like, he's not going to hold your dad. And she's like, no, that can't be so. And so Elliot's feeling some type of way, obviously. He cares for Shannon, you know, deeply. He doesn't want to be a part of this life anymore. And he wants to take care of his dad, right? So talk about being caught in between a rock and a hard place, right? But he comes clean to his dad about what they're doing, the new passports, the new, you know, life basically. And I liked his dad kind of showing up and be like, you've got to level with me if you want me to leave my name, my home, and everything left behind. Like for that conversation to be had, what were your thoughts about, did you think his dad was going to comply, or was he going to fight it?
I thought he was going to comply, only because Elliot and his dad are so close.
Yeah,
they're so close. And when I saw that part, it took me back to the beginning of the episode 6 years ago when they're at the wake, and he tells Elliot, don't let this destroy you. Don't let what you've become destroy you. That kept ringing in my head when they're in the car and he's talking to his dad. And I think his dad knows Elliot more than anybody in this world. And I think more importantly, his dad knows when Elliot is fixated on something, or he's undercover, or he's focused on something. Sometimes that thing can engulf him, and he knows that. And I think that was him reminding him, like, look, man, you got to live with me. I'm here for you, but for me to help you, you got to be clean and tell me what's going on, because I don't want this to eat at you like it did 6 years ago, and even now. But I think when Elliot finally came clean, well, sort of came clean, because he didn't say everything, but he did say, generically,
he said enough.
He said enough that I've killed people. I've done things I didn't want to do. I think his dad was like, you know what? To protect my son, and if it makes it easier for me to get away and change my name, only to keep his sanity and protect him, preserve his life, I'm going to do that. So I think that's why he was so willing to do what Elliot wanted him to do at that point.
Yeah, I felt for him, especially when he, repeated what Elliot said about the new name. I'm Ezra Fox. This is my son Miles. And so they're on their way to the airport, Heathrow Airport, as you pointed out to me earlier. And I've only been once, so I didn't recognize it. Also, it was like 5 a.m. in the morning when I arrived one time. So it's like not paying attention. But as I said, Elliot's caught in between a rock and a hard place. He wants to, get his dad out of the country. He wants to help Shannon. He wants to get himself out. And I saw this happening, Dad, there's one thing I have to do before we leave. But let me give you this USB. You're going to be contacted by Singer. He'll know who you are. Give this to him. And I'll be back. Like, I'll be back in time. Right. And I'm like, oh God, no, this is just not going to end well. You know how you can just feel things happening before they happen, right? It was that was so difficult.
I was so disappointed in Elliot from that standpoint, only because there are eyes on you, and you know that Heathrow is the most proximity-based airport where you're at. Why in the fuck would you not get on the train and go like to Glasgow or go to France? No, seriously, like you could have went somewhere else to kind of throw them off your trail and fly out of there, or take a boat. Like you went to the most common place to get away and start a new. Like, you don't think people are gonna be at the airport waiting on your ass? Listen,
I blame Singer. Okay, he set this all up. I blame Singer.
I just that just took away from like his naiveness, and you are a guy who's working with the feds for years. You've been undercover for years. Like, you should know better, bro.
Yeah, and the investor mouthpiece, as I call her, because I don't know her name. I actually don't know if she has a name, but he takes the phone call and she's like, that was very stupid of you to do that. Bring yourself and your father back, or the investors are going to kill you both. And so put a pin in that. But Elliot leaves. He's going to go find Ed to deliver to Shannon, of course. But in the meantime, we see an interaction between Koba and Bassem's people. I don't know their names, so this is why I say Bassem's people, no disrespect. But he comes in after this little meeting about, hey, we're gonna fight back kind of thing. And Koba walks in and he looks at guy number 1, condolences. Guy number 2, condolences. Looks at the girl, Saba. You were the one who delivered Sean Wallace's message. And she's like, yeah. He goes, come with me. And I'm like, oh shit, this is not going to end well. So Frank, what she's summoned to do then is to deliver another message, but this time to Sean, basically to say, Koba wants to meet with you, just the two of you and only you, or else it's going to be war. And I have to ask you, Frank, why does Sean like to taunt people?
I don't know. I think Sean thinks he's smarter than what he is. Sean is still a little boy with a temper. He wants to react instead of being proactive.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much ego with him, man. Like you have a new lease on life. He should have been dead last season, and like you're not learning from that. You're
Yeah.
being even more of an arrogant asshole, and like you're not taking regards of your life, your mother's life, your brother's life, your sister's life, your niece, like your new half sister. Like you got to be smarter. And typically when people get shot and like survive death, they kind of like they kind of realize they have a new purpose in life, and they kind of like move differently. And Sean is not moving differently. He's doing more of the same. And I don't know if it's because of his age. I don't know. He's just an immature dude. But I need him to move more covertly in this. And you know, maybe he has a plan. Maybe he's doing something. He has something set in place for the big shebang towards the end of the season where we're like, oh, well, shit, I guess he's smarter than what he is. But he comes off as a petulant child at times.
100%.
And I don't know what's it going to take for him to have a life-changing approach or how he handles his business.
A come to Jesus moment, if
Yes,
you will.
absolutely.
Someone's probably going to have to go see Jesus for him to have a come to Jesus moment. That's what I'm banking. But the fact that, Saba delivers her message and basically says, hey, you've got 30 minutes to meet or else it's going to be war. And when Sean talks to her before she leaves and says, I bet you really hate me right now. I bet you would just really want to kill me right now. And she's like, yeah, basically. I was just like, Sean, my dude, like, shut the fuck up. Like, just shut the fuck up. Like, you're not bad. Like, you think you are, but you're not. Basically, everything you just said. But yeah, that's where we leave that interaction. Going back to Elliot, as I said, he's made a decision to go and find Ed, right? And I love the encounter that he has with Koba's right-hand man back at the scene of this, the big shootout, the big explosive, um, big boss meeting, right? And dude just like sees right through Elliot's lies, right? Were you excited to finally see like another Elliot fight scene? Because I'm over here, I'm like, yay, they're gonna fight and Elliot's gonna kill him.
I literally live for Elliot fight scenes. Elliot fight scenes outside of the Wallace dynasty or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. The Elliot fight scenes are what makes me love this show so much, because I get a Black John Wick sequence every fucking time, and it's just like the fact that this man is still alive. It's like, as far as fight scenes, it's Elliot here, and then like 1B is like Lawan. Like those guys they define logic, they define physics sometimes. They define it's John Wick reincarnated for the show. And I live for those moments, and it's like my life is incomplete if I don't get an Elliot sequence of like him defying the odds and like surviving in one way or the other.
Yeah, because I felt like it's been a couple of episodes since we've actually seen like an Elliot centric fight scene, right? I mean, the first episode for sure with the laundry mat and what have you, that was incredible. But it's like, man, it's been a few episodes since we've seen like an Elliot fight scene, because we got a lot with Luan, of course, right? So that was cool. But I was thrilled to see Elliot take out this dude. I don't know entirely if he killed the dude or he just put him in like a sleeper kind of state, but didn't matter. Got the fight scene, and it didn't stop there. Did not stop there, because when Elliot does locate Ed and try to free him of the handcuffs from the chairs, noise is made. One of Koba's other associates comes in and fucks up. Basically fucks up. I mean, he shows up with a knife, right? But Elliot's just a cold motherfucker. Like to get the dude on his back, even though Elliot got stabbed, right? He got stabbed like in the shoulder.
He did, yeah.
Yeah. And then to like, put the dude's arm in such a way where he forces the dude to like stab himself a couple times and he's actually not watching him, right? He covers the dude's mouth, but he's watching the open door to see if anyone else comes in, and still stabs twice. And dude just dies like that. And he never once looked at him. I thought was fucking incredible.
But what's so crazy to me is that the fight scene with the big dude is not a quiet scene. Like it's very loud, it's very combustible, and nobody runs in. Like if I'm a henchman and like there's four of us playing poker at a table, and like one of the guys goes out and he hears a sound, I'm like, ah, cool. I'm gonna play poker for a little bit, bang bang, you know, full house, whatever. And he's gone for like 3 or 4 minutes, and I don't hear nothing. Like I'm gonna get up and like see what's going on. And then I know that they had to have heard something. It's an open warehouse. It's like everything is hollow, like their pipes and everything, like everything is hollow as fuck. To see nobody walk in there in the middle of that fight was like, come on, bro. This is like ridiculous. This is getting ridiculous now. Come on now.
Little bit. But before we get to the even more craziness that is Elliot, oh man. Ed is freed of one handcuff thanks to Elliot, but he's not freed of the other. This next scene, I would have actually passed out had that happened to me, because there's no like verbal communication whatsoever between these two men. Like as you said, it's a hollowed room and you could virtually hear everything. But Elliot grabs that iron rod and Ed pulls back his hand. And yeah, I know you're cringing. I'm cringing just talking about it. And you know that Elliot's going to have to smash the hand to break it in order for it to slide through the handcuff, right? Ed stuffs his tie into his mouth and you know, that happens. I literally, if that were me, the amount of pain that has to inflict on a person, I probably would have passed out and just like died right there. It would have been for naught. Like it just really would have been for nothing. Like no, watching it, I'm like, oh.
I'm sorry, man. I would have had to wait to find a locksmith or like find somebody with a blowtorch to like sear those cuffs off. Because he broke his thumb. Like he like smashed. He broke his whole thumb. Hand. Okay, he broke his whole hand. Okay, like that's just nah, fam. I can't do that. I got to eat the stomach. No.
But as they're trying to escape at this point, then they get busted by the other associates who then click, oh, this dude's been gone for a long time. Like, where did he go? And like, oh yeah, Koba, I need you to do better with hiring your associates, okay?
Right.
But Jesus Christ, Frank, like when the gun is pointed to Elliot, get on your knees, you know, zip tie yourself, you know, handcuff yourself, and Elliot proceeds to do just that. But he's quick, right? He takes the gun, you know, gets it out of the dude's hands, shoves it in dude's mouth, and you see just the blast of I say the blast of the gunfire, but it swells in the dude's cheeks. Dude is gone. That's shot number one, right? Shot number two goes through the head and kills dude number two behind the initial guy. Fucking creative scene.
But I guess again, like this is Koba's fault for not hiring smarter henchmen, because like this guy, Elliot got hired specifically for his military training and investigative work. So you know, hand-to-hand combat, he's dangerous as fuck. Why would you walk up to him and give him a zip tie?
Because these people are very ill-informed.
You think that Elliot's going to be just going to concede and be like, okay, you got me. Here you go. Like, bro, no.
I give up.
You shoot Elliot in the head, and I mean that's the end of the show, but you shoot in the head for the day. Like you don't try to you know, contain the most dangerous hand-to-hand combat fighter on the fucking show.
No, but I'll give it to the writers and producers and directors of these episodes, because they come up with some creative ass ways to show people being murked, and it's like, my goodness, like that the amount of visual effects that went into just showcasing this dude's mouth being blown up to bits, and then you see like blood coming out of his eyes and the, you know, everything else that happened thereafter. It was just like, my goodness gracious. I think that follows in terms of my favorite death scenes after the butcher knife scene from season 1, because that locked me into Gangs of London.
I think too, like if I was like a person in this world, I'm going to have to understand that there are no no open casket funerals in this world. Like think about that. If you study all the deaths from Finn's death to now, there has not been one simple death that was an open casket funeral. Like all of them are closed caskets. Off top.
Including Elliot's families.
Yeah. Off top. Like Elliot, like all of them was close. Like there's no. I think Finn was open casket only because they put his head back together. But other than that, the rest.
No, I think it was closed.
Was it closed?
Oh, yeah, because Sean went and opened it to see his father's.
You're right. He opened it because it was in the house. He opened it to see his dad. You're right. It was closed casket. You're correct. Yeah. So it's like, so for people who get killed in the show, they're not going to cheat you on creative ways to die. You're going to die in a special way to where it's going to be a closed casket. Off top.
Yeah. Insane. But Ed and Elliot do make the great escape. Elliot does deliver Ed to Shannon, and I don't know, I'm sure he feels kind of torn. Like he wants to be with her, wants to protect her, but it's like he's got to get back to his dad. In the meantime,
let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
From the conclusion of whenever the series ends, whether it's season 8, 9, whatever.
Let's hope.
Do you think? Yeah, I hope so too. I want a long run. I want a long run of this show. Do you think at the conclusion of the end of this series that Elliot and Shannon are going to be together?
Not at all.
Not at all? Not even close?
I don't think there's ever a happy ending for Elliot. I just feel, it's a very fairy tale way of thinking of, oh, I've been a tortured soul and gone through so much, I should get a happy ending. This is Gangs of London. This is like a reality that we just can't fathom. And I don't think he'll get his happy ending. I'm not necessarily saying that she would die or he dies. I just don't think that they'd ever be able to be together just because of so many enemies that they'd make along the way and things of that nature.
I'm going to combat that only because I feel like there's a little bit of like foreshadowing in the show. They keep bringing up Elliot's wife and kid being dead and dying. And I think for them, this is the third time they brought this up. It's the first actual second flashback, because the first flashback, when he's looking at Shannon, he's seeing his wife and son, and like he had got shot. He had got shot, same as Sean. He's on the operating table, and like he keeps seeing his wife and son, and again we saw the caskets of his wife and son. I think the show keeps showing that to create a full circle of like him having a second chance of having a family. I think Shannon might be that person, and Danny as well. Now, whether or not Shannon has another kid, I don't know. But I think they're trying to show that through all the hell that he's going through, all the loss that Elliot has had, I think his happy ending is having that second lease and having that family again.
That's a great point. It's a very romanticized way for Elliot to kind of have it all, I guess you could say. The teetering between his family from the past versus the possible family he could have with Shannon. I'm still of the belief that one does not get a happy ending when you are in this world of crime and such, like what Koba said, if you're stupid enough to have a family in this business, everything's fair game. And I don't know, that to me foreshadows a lot more than just glimpses here and there. But, I'll be pleasantly surprised and very happy for Elliot and Shannon if they are able to get out of this world and live happily ever after. I mean, I think that's what everyone would kind of hope for. But the obstacles that they'd have to go through in order to get to that goal is going to be very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Off top.
So let's talk about this meeting between Koba and Sean. I laughed when I saw that it was at like a bowling alley arcade place. I don't know what they're called, but I'm like, oh, okay. So talk about public, talk about families, this kind of environment where you think Koba's not going to do shit. Koba don't give a fuck, right? He does not give a fuck. But the exchange between the two about this theme of middle management, this lack of normality, I thought it was really well phrased, because to me in this moment, Sean actually sounded very smart. Like, just the way that he kind of made that proposal to Koba about how, one, we're here because I figured any person would think that a Georgian assassin would stick out like a sore thumb, basically. And he does. He looks like he's dressed from the 90s. I feel like I had a windbreaker that looked like what he was wearing when I was a kid. But also to basically say, hey, like, we came here on the pretense that no one else was gonna, you know, be around, right? But I'm pretty sure, this is Sean talking, if I walk outside, I'm gonna find all your men and we're gonna go, right? And Sean's like, but I have something better to offer. I have a deal, that I want to make with you, Koba, to take down the investors. Like, did you expect that at all from Sean?
No, I didn't. Only because it seemed like his original plan was to take down Koba, and I gotta admit, I gotta give Sean some credit, because I think when Luan pretty much said he wasn't down, he had to quickly pivot and come up with a new plan. And to be able to come up with that kind of plan, and it's a ballsy plan. Like, you're putting yourself out there in the open, and you don't have the army with you. Kobe has people outside to pick you up the minute you go outside. So that for you to have the confidence to have a plan to where it can persuade Koba to even think about it and like see what's in it for Koba, I think it was a perfect storm of everything. I think it was the perfect storm of Koba being disrespected by Asif, of his recent failures the episode before. I think it was a perfect storm of Sean getting turned down by Luan and having to pivot as well. I think all of these different inadequacies that happened created the perfect storm of Koba even entertaining the offer in the first fucking place.
Yeah, especially with the fact that Sean said take down the investors, and the investors already said that if Koba doesn't kill Sean, that they're going to kill him. So life is at stake, right? Koba thinks he's in power, but Sean kind of puts him in check and says, no, you're not in power. You answer to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want that life, then we need to band together and take back London and get rid of these investors one by one, so that there is no one else to answer to, because Koba does have a formidable gang, just like Sean has a formidable name, right? You join alliances with the Wallaces, it's like, fuck, let's go. Right? Oh, but yeah, that meeting in itself was great. I loved how, you hear like that music playing in the background, and then when things got real serious between the two of them, the music just muted entirely, and you're forced to focus on them, their facial expressions, what's being said. I think that whole sequence in itself was just incredibly well directed and beautifully shot, because you've got like these really cool camera sort of angles. I don't know, I'm kind of geeking out a little bit on cinematography, but I think that scene really set the tone for what's going to happen next as we get to the end of this episode, because damn, like, I felt some type of way at the end of this episode.
It does make me wonder too, Brittany, if Sean didn't have that intel on the investors, what would have been his other plan against Koba? Would he just said, fuck it, I'm just gonna go war with Koba? Or he would have just find some other alliance with somebody else outside Luan? Like, it makes me wonder, if he didn't have that piece of information regarding the investors, what route he would have took.
Well, see, that's the thing, because at the time we didn't know what kind of information Sean had,
Mm-hmm.
on the investors, because it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you work for the investors, but like, what information can you provide that will make Koba, join forces with you? I feel like if he wasn't so confident in what he ended up doing, I don't think he would have even fucked with Koba. I think he just kind of would have gone about life differently. Would he still want Koba to be eliminated? Probably so, but he needed to find other alliances in order to make that happen. It would have taken longer, but initially, I don't think he would have ever approached Koba for whatever reason, because he didn't have anything of value, and probably didn't figure that Koba would be in on it as well, just because the fact that he works for the investors, right? But I think the fact that he called it out for what it was, it's like, you have no power. You work for the investors. They make all the decisions. Like, you ain't shit, right? So yeah, if Sean didn't have the counter offer of, I've got intel, I've got info, we can do this, he wouldn't have fucked around with Koba, like, at all.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
I agree. I think had it went to that route of him not having anything of value, the only other thing he could have done is probably try to find alliances outside of London, because Koba and Asif have London on lock. You can't trust anybody at this point. I think Luan was the only person you could like somewhat trust, only because of what Luan went through with Koba and how Luan's pretty much like fuck Koba at this point. But all the other families are not going to rise up against Koba outside of the Kurds. Kurds. Sorry, Kurds.
Not turds.
No, I said Kurd. I said Kurds, but I know it was Kurds.
Oh, I thought you were saying turds. I'm like, no, that means something else.
No. It's Kyrgyzstan, right? Is that what Nalai's from?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So going back to Elliot, after he delivers Ed to Shannon, he told his dad, hey, like, hold on to this USB. Singer's gonna come find you. I'm gonna be back. Like, I'm gonna be back in time. And when Singer does meet up with Charlie at the airport, Charlie, I'll give it to him. He kind of has leverage. He's got the USB. He can kind of call the shots, right? And
no, he can't. He's a regular.
He thinks he can. Okay, you got to give it to the man. He tried. Okay, he tried.
You're a civilian. You're talking to a federal agent. You don't have no power at all.
But what did the federal agent do? The federal agent did nothing. Okay, he absolutely did nothing. Okay, so they're waiting at the airport, right? Charlie's saying, I'm not going to give you the package until my son gets here. Okay. Elliot's walking through Heathrow. Heathrow's a big airport, y'all. If y'all never been to Heathrow, it's the largest airport in London.
Yep.
Or in the UK in general. It's not the largest in Europe. I've been to the largest airport in Europe, and that's in Frankfurt. But anyway, I digress. But Charlie is kind of calling the shots, or so he thinks. Singer's like waiting. He's like, fine, I'll play this little game of yours. But behind Charlie is a woman, red-haired woman with a baby, right? And, any old man would probably do the same look. Oh, look, cute baby, that kind of thing. And there was this look that this woman had that kind of made you think, something's not right about this. Something's not right about this exchange whatsoever. And we cut back to Elliot walking through the airport. There's security, police running, hauling ass. And he finds the scene. Loads of people. Singer and his father are dead on the ground. What were your feelings when this scene happened?
My initial feeling was, you better explain how a mother and a child murders a federal agent and a civilian in the largest airports in the world in an open ass airport gate. And for them
not to mention firearms outside of law enforcement, it's completely illegal in the UK.
Correct.
Okay.
It was a firearm because they had shots to the head. There were headshots. So it was a firearm. How in the fuck did you get a firearm inside of the airport through TSA to inside the gate? They have to, like, for my sanity, you have to explain that. Like, you cannot go past this episode and not explain how the fuck they killed two men, a federal agent and a civilian, in an open ass airport gate in the largest airport in the world. And then
they're not going to explain
worse, it. You don't, like, yes, there's a fire, this cops there and like ambulance and all of that. There's no suspect. How the fuck did this woman get away with a child on her after murdering two people in the open?
It's because the baby did it, and no one's going to question a baby. I mean, no, I honestly don't know. I agree. There's no explanation whatsoever, and we are jumping to the conclusion that it was a woman with the baby because, we'll get there in a second. But we know that for a fact this woman was involved in the murder of Singer and Charlie. But Elliot doesn't know this information yet because there is no suspect. Yeah. He figures all he's got to go off of is the phone call he got when he was going back to London to get Ed, right? He gets a call from the mouthpiece, the investor mouthpiece, who says, that was a dumb decision. You need to come back with your dad. Or they're gonna kill you, right? That's his tell. He does go and find the mouthpiece in a stable, and she's basically saying to him, like, I didn't, order this. Like, I'm like you. I passed on the information. Like, I don't want to do this, but I'm here.
How the fuck did he find her? Like,
I asked you the same question the other day about how the fuck did he find Sean after Sean, goes and gets Billy? Like, how did he know where the hideout was, right? It's a mystery. CCTV. I don't know. Well, Elliot's got sources.
But like, we're led to believe that he doesn't even know what this woman looks like, the mouthpiece. And
no. We've seen her before. We've seen her at his place. Yeah.
Okay. I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, to like, what resources did you have to like know where she lived at? Like, this is a barn. It looked like it was outside the city, like in the countryside. Like, to find her at a barn, like at a home where her daughter's at, like, that's like, if you have that kind of power already, why don't you just kill them back in the first place?
Yeah. And that's the question, because that scene leaves you wondering, did he end up killing the mouthpiece? Because he did take, like, I think, what do you call them? Stirrups? Yeah, I think that's what they're called. Stirrups, and like kind of whacks her upside the head with it, right? And she stumbles and but you don't get a clear, definite answer of, did he just beat her senseless or did he kill her? Because then the camera pans over to the house and you see the little girl like dancing or like doing something with her hair through the window or whatever.
No, I think he killed her.
You think he killed her? Oh.
I think like his dad is dead. Like the one man that he fought, he said would have sacrificed his life to protect, is gone. Like that's the last of his family. That bitch is dead.
That's true, because he's sitting in the car and he's like pissed about, this is prior to finding mouthpiece. He's hearing his dad in his head of Elliot, if you ever feel you're slipping, like, just don't let this destroy you. Don't let this destroy you. And it's like, nope, he's gonna let it destroy him. So Elliot does what he does. That's where we leave Elliot off. But then we go back to Sean. Okay, they're in a parking garage. Him and Koba. They're waiting on this van that pulls up. Out walks the redhead woman from the airport. And he asks, is it done? And she said yes, but it was only Singer and the father. Elliot wasn't there. So that tells you that Sean ordered the hit on these three men. Elliot just by chance was not there, escapes death once again. But Sean is going after Elliot, Frank. Like, did you foresee that happening?
I foresaw him going after Elliot eventually, only because Elliot was the guy who shot him in the season finale. But I didn't think in that fashion, taking out his dad and all of that. How did he even know that who his dad even was? Like Sean, I'm talking about Sean per se. Like, how did Sean know that Elliot even had family? Because I don't think Singer would have told him.
No, like, Singer did say when they met privately in the beginning of the episode that Elliot and his dad were getting out.
But how do you know who his dad was? Because the investors had moved them to a secret location, to a facility.
I don't know. He probably had Singer tailed, and if Singer showed up at the airport and was sitting with this black man that is older and presumably could be Elliot's father, I mean, there you go. I don't know. I don't have an answer. But yeah, no, to see that Sean was the one who ordered the hit, and then it makes sense entirely of him having said to Koba, I've got information about the investors, because he knew that there was a USB with information about the investors that Singer was going to get from Elliot or Charlie. And he hands it over to Koba and says, this is it. This is every contact, every known location, every known bank account, just everything. And Koba says the investors are so fucked. And they shake hands and they're taking London. but are they really going to do it together, or do they have other agendas?
I can't answer that question fairly.
I know.
In 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I think, and I haven't seen this from the episodes I saw, but I think there's going to be irreparable damage on Sean's behalf of killing Singer, because Singer works for the federal agents in London. It's an offshore shield type operation, but then again, people like Singer is not the only one. He's not the only person working on this case.
Yeah.
For X amount of years, there are other people working on this case within Singer's team, and I think him killing Singer is going to be irreparable damage, and it's going to cause even more heartache for Sean in the long run, because you can't kill a federal agent, like you just can't do that. And if it gets back, like they're going to realize, okay, Singer's dead. Who was the last person that Singer talked to? Elliot and Sean, as far as the relationship they had with trying to get Sean back at the helm as the gang of London. So I don't think that bodes well for Sean in the long run.
Yeah, because it's definitely not going to be Elliot as the suspect for killing Singer. It's like, well, why would he kill Singer and his dad?
Exactly, because Singer was trying to give him an out of getting new passports, fleeing to a new country, all of that. So it's going to point to Sean.
Oh yeah, no, I I don't doubt that whatsoever. So for me, and like many others who are watching Gangs of London weekly on AMC, because it is streaming on not only AMC Plus but on cable network AMC. So yeah, no, it's been a hell of a ride. I just couldn't believe that Koba and Sean were willing to make this alliance, and I'm like, this is not gonna go well for anyone, specifically Sean, I'm sure.
I think one thing we've learned about this show is that alliances are so temporary. Like we've already seen the alliance between Miriam and Luan go afray because of Luan setting up Miriam. We've seen the alliance between Marion and
Floriana.
Floriana, that went awry very, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing Sean and Koba. These lines are very temporary and very short, only because these people are so ambitious and all want the same thing. And sooner or later, your ambition is going to collide with somebody else's ambitions, and somebody's going to end up dying.
Well, and I wonder too how Lale is going to feel about this new alliance with Sean and Koba, because like she's with Sean in a fashion, like sexually, and she wanted her people out from Koba's, from under Koba's foot. So it's like, okay, well now you're in alliance with him. Like, what does that mean for her and her people? Like, I don't see anything good.
And I can make the argument too, Brittany, that it's beyond sexually, because when Lale and Sean are talking on top of that balcony, and Lale's saying, we've created this warning to Koba's people. Like Lale's and Sean are like not holding hands, but like
it's a very tender moment.
It's very tender. Like it's beyond just fucking. Like they care for each other. Yeah. And I think that scene, that touch, or that scene of them touching showcases the meteoric rise of their emotions towards each other. Because you got to think about it. Lale came back for Sean when Sean got shot.
That's true.
Her plan was to save Sean, and then Sean, when Singer was like, I'll give you whatever you need. I need Lale. And like, that was the first thing he thought of. So like, there's emotion. There's an intimate relationship there besides just sex. They truly care for each other.
That's fair. That is a fair point. I did forget to mention about that moment on the rooftop, but yeah, it's going to cause rifts. I mean, I know you're a couple episodes ahead of me, but I really feel it's going to cause a lot of rifts. And I think especially within the Wallace family themselves, Billy, Mariam, like it's not gonna be good. Not gonna be good. I'm curious to see how things will unfold for the Dumanis now that Ed has been freed from Koba's associates. How we'll see Luan again, if we're going to see him actually join forces with anyone, the Dumanis, or certainly not with Sean because of what's happened with Koba. But I'm curious if, let's say, we'll see something develop between the Dumanis and Luan's, just because it seemed that Luan was grateful for Ed's sacrifices of revealing the burial site of his wife and things like that. So I don't know. I'm really excited to see what's going to unfold for the next episode.
I am too, and you said cause a rift. That is a fucking understatement.
I bet.
Yeah. So. My God, you're about to see.
Oh my God, that's funny. All right, so that will conclude this week's episode review on Gangs of London, Season 2, Episode 5. I wish they actually gave these titles, but it is what it is. So this was a really great episode. I'm never disappointed with Gangs of London episodes. It's a really great show. For those who have not checked it out, do yourself a favor, go check it out. Watch Season 1. That way you get the full backstory about this family and everyone else involved. That way you can catch up with us for Season 2. But in the meantime, be sure to follow us, The Watchers in the Basement, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're on the road to 200. We're at 193 last time I checked, which is great. Also, we are wanting to grow our audience, so use the hashtag Watchers Basement. Send us memes, articles, things of that nature. We will be back Monday to talk about the best and worst of 2022. I feel like with the news that broke out last night from DC and Henry Cavill, that's going to be talked about at the beginning of next Monday's episode. So be sure to tune in for that. I know Justin feels some type of way. Poor Justin.
Also, one more quick plug. We had a show last Monday putting together our best Marvel teams. We need y'all to vote. Please, we'll share the link and watch it in the Watchers Instagram stories. Go to YouTube, vote for your best team. Team Franklin, Team Brittany, Team Justin, Team Desmond, and Team Tristan. Vote for your best team. The polls are open to the beginning of January.
That is correct. That's actually been a really great turnout from voters. And I mean, between you and Desmond, y'all are like constantly neck and neck.
Y'all can't at me, man. Y'all laugh at my squad, bro. My dog. I'm telling you, man, this squad gonna hit. It's gonna hit.
That Captain Marvel pick just floored me. Anyway, we're not going to digress and talk about that too much. But yes, please do check out that pod and also cast your vote in the community tab here on YouTube. Lastly, don't forget to check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks to Anchor.fm. Give us a 5-star rating. Helps us out so much. And Frank, I cannot even talk to close out this pod, but we will be back next week to talk about episode 6 from Season 2 of Gangs of London. Thank you for introducing me to this show. It's bloody. And you're right to say it's a modern day Game of Thrones.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I felt like I had to share this with the world because the gem was just too much of a secret. I had to let it out. So yes.
Yeah. Glad you shared that secret. So thanks to everyone who joined us today and checked out the replay or the audio podcast. We will be back next week for more podcasts. We'll see y'all then.